My track record with Lion King stories on this web series has not been good. Long live the Queen. Yes, that lovely story. And then there was the Golden Girl crossover, which was very, very bizarre. And now here we are, Zira's Heir. The thing is, this is not a requested story. This was handpicked by the creator herself as a punishment. Not just because of me getting sassy in the last episode, oh no. The thing is, I originally was going to be reviewing something quite different in this episode. The story in question was called, Immortal Gods and Their Destined One. It was a Dragon Ball Z crossover with some anime. And the story was a bloody troll story. I was only supposed to read the author's note, and then the first paragraph of the first chapter. And I'd say I got 2/3 done with the paragraph when I just decided to rage quit because it was a bunch of nonsensical garbage, and that was a requested story. So to the person who requested that, sorry, not sorry, but it was a waste of time reading it. It was just... The first paragraph alone was just a bunch of nonsensical garbage, a bunch of nasty things happening, like people beating up a baby and then setting the baby on fire, and then the ghost of the baby being eaten by Ghost Nappa, or some bloody nonsense like that, and then it just got, so ridiculous that I just got to a point where I'm like, you know what, no, I'm not going to do it, I don't care, and I started going off on the creator, and the creator got very furious, and so here we are. I'm going to be reading a story called Zira's Heir. So, the author. Writer, 45. Let's read the author's note. After Kovu's encounter with Kiara, Zira is left on edge. She worries that Kovu could have different feelings on Simba if she let his feelings continue. What? She needed another heir just in case Kovu failed her. However, no one else in the Outlands carried Scar's royal blood, all except for one cowardly teenage lion. Oh, wonderful! Another story involving incest between a mother and her son. It's rated M, of course it is. It's in English, it's a romance. The pairing is Zira and Nuka. Word count is 2,663 words, so just under the limit. 1 review, 3 faves, 2 follows, and it was published in January of this year, which this current year, for me anyway, is 2022. Now, please excuse my voice. I'm still recovering from a cold, and no, it's not COVID. I've tested 3 times now, and it's all negative across the board. It's just a bloody cold. Drinking ginger ale. That's been helping. So, let's read this. Oh, another author's note. This story contains depictions of incest and rape. Please do not read this if you are sensitive or disgusted by any of those 2 subjects. Love run-on sentences and bad grammatical mistakes. Without further ado, enjoy the story. Love your punctuation there, dearie. His head hurt. It ached with a growing pain, one where he could not remember what caused the injury. Nuka blinked twice after opening his eyes. He saw the inside of one of the outland caverns where his pride lived, a familiar scenery that he's grown accustomed to for throughout his cubhood to current teenage years. They used the wrong "to" there. He was lying on his back, his stomach facing the ceiling. His back legs were up in the air, spread open a little bit, with his tail resting on the cold ground. Nuka realized that he was staring at the ceiling of the caverns, seeing all the orange and brown-like stalactites hanging from the ceiling, pointing at him. It always made Nuka uncomfortable staring at them. Sometimes they even made him paranoid at night, which resulted in his mother scolding him and his younger sister, Vitani, to ridicule him, much to his annoyance. Ow, what happened to my head? I don't remember hitting on anything lately, unless those damn termites did something to brain with all the biting. Nuka struggled to remember what happened, but aside from that, his next goal was to get out, get some fresh but dirty outland air, and find his mother and asked him, I guess Zira is a boy in this, what happened. However, his attempts to get up were ruined by an odd restraint that refrained him from moving his front legs and paws to the ground, as they were wrapped tightly around his sides with a strange object wrapped around his arms, back, and chest. They were tied tightly and prevented Nuka from even moving an inch from his current position. And who exactly tied all these things? Lions don't have opposable thumbs. Huh? Why can't I open my mouth? Nuka didn't realize at first due to the headache, but he now realized the feeling of something wrapped tightly around his muzzle, preventing him from uttering a single word. The teenage lion attempted to move around and squirm in a desperate attempt to free himself, but to no avail. Eventually, he grew tired of his attempts and laid in the position as he woke up in. He breathed harshly through his nose. What is going on? Was I kidnapped? But by who? There aren't other tribes out here in the outland, so who would do this? Does Mother know I'm gone at all? Upon the mention of his mother, Nuka remembered something from yesterday. Wait a minute, Mother wanted to do some special training with me. I have to get out of here. This might be my only chance to prove that I'm fitter than Kovu to be king. Determination soon filled Nuka as he began to struggle out of his restraints again. Come on, damn things, get off of me. I can't let Mother down this time. It's useless to struggle, my dear. That was a really bad attempt to sound like Zira, I'm sorry. A familiar voice echoed in the cavern. Nuka jolted at the direction of the voice and instantly recognized its sharpness. Only one lioness could have a sharp voice like that, and that was his mother, Zira. Zira walked out from one of the pathways and into Nuka's sight. Nuka immediately began squirming and making noises with his tied muzzle to urge his mother to free him. But as Zira approached him, Nuka only saw a sly smile on her face, leaving him confused. Ah, my dear son. I'm sorry I arrived late. I was trying to make sure the two of us could be alone for this special training. Nuka cocked an eyebrow at his mother's words. Wait, this is part of the special training. Zira chuckled at Nuka's reaction and approached her son, lifting up his head by putting her paw under his chin. Now, my sweet Nuka, I know this may seem odd for training, so since I love you so much, I'll tell you truth about all this. Nuka's eyes widened. Wait, she loves me. She's never said that to me before. She only ever says that to Kovu and Vitani. Does this mean she sees my capability? Now, dear Nuka, I told you that I would be taking you for special training, just me and you. I'm sorry to say, my dear boy, but I was lying to you about the whole training thing. It was just an excuse to get you and me out here alone where no one can interrupt us. She ended that last bit with a devilish smile that put chills up Nuka's fur. You see, Nuka, I need you for a different purpose, and a very important one at that. One that could help us aid our goal of killing Simba and taking back Scar's rightful legacy for the throne. I have a feeling this might interest you, as you're the only one capable of this task. Zira said. Nuka was confused, yet intrigued nonetheless. A task only he was capable of. What does she mean? Maybe since he was the only male lion, he might have a chance to take on Simba with enough fighting and muscle strength. Nuka attempted to speak, but was shushed thanks to the restraint. Zira put one of her paw pads on Nuka's mouth. Shh, my dear. Let Mommy explain the details, Zira said with her eyes half-lidded. You see, dear, I've been training Kovu for the day he retakes Scar's throne from Simba. All was going well until you let him out of your sight to the Pride Lands where he met that wretched princess of Simba's. I wouldn't have thought any of it until Kovu started talking of her in good words. and it had me thinking of the possibilities for our plans. What if Kovu somehow decides to keep thinking of that girl in good light and tries to do something behind our backs? Everything we worked for would be ruined, and you know whose fault that it is. Nuka looked around confused at where all this was going. He shook his head in response. Zira half-lit eyes went wide with fury, and she roared at her son. It would be all your fault, Nuka, that's who. You let that damn cub out of your sight when I gave you one simple task to watch him, and you failed! Zira screeched at him, causing Nuka to flinch back and squirm in fear. Nuka even winced at this sudden outburst, his curiosity now replaced with fear. Nuka expected a paw to the face, but instead of the wrath he usually felt from his mother, he felt her tongue lick his cheek. He looked up in shock to see his mother not angry anymore, but with a smirk keeping her half-lidded eyes. So I came up with a new plan that involved your secret skill as punishment for your error. But don't worry, Nuka. This won't be painful at all. In fact, you might find yourself enjoying it. Zira said with a low voice that sounded seductive. Nuka raised an eyebrow in confusion. Should say confusion, but it says confusing, as his mother walked away from his face to his hind legs in air. You see, Nuka, we need a new heir for Scar, just in case Kovu goes rogue on us in the future. And there is no way I can give birth to another cub in the environment we're in. But all this will work because I have you to help. You see, my sweet little boy, you carry Scar's blood, which can continue his bloodline more naturally than Kovu can, since he's not Scar's son. Zira explained, slyly explained. Are you serious? Nuka muffled in response, still confused to where this was going. Zira chuckled for a bit. Nuka, my dear, the only way for me to give birth to a new heir for our plan to work is to mate with the one who carries Scar's blood, and there is no other male line here that can do that, unlike you. Nuka's eyes widened at the sudden realization. Zira smiled at his reaction. Yes, Nuka, you and I are going to mate for this plan to work. White. I have to mate with my mum, but I've never met you before. But before Nuka could react, he realized where his mother was. With his head up, he realized that in between his legs were the prize Zira was looking for, and she licked her lips at the sight of it. Zira stared at her son's cream-colored teeth and balls, hanging there out in the open for her as if they were hers to claim. Zira put one of her paws out and traced from Nuka's right hind leg to his crotch. Nuka shuddered at the touch and let out a muffled gasp as Zira's paw now gently cupped his balls. She slightly played with them with her paw, moving them around and caressing them as if they were sacred. Not bad, Nuka, even for your age, she complimented with a devilish smile. She released his balls from her paw and gently positioned her head in between Nuka's legs and began licking the sheath and balls. Nuka blushed and felt his heart pound at his mother's affection. Holy crap, this feels so good, but I feel so weird for liking it. Is this what the first time mating feels like? Zira continued her work on moving her tongue around to massage Nuka's crotch, and her efforts came to fruition as Nuka's length began to rise out of his sheath in all of its glory, much to Zira's pleasure. Ah, now there we go, she cooed as she witnessed her son's pride with a good length to add much to Zira's impressiveness. Nuka felt like his heart would pound out of his chest. He never felt a complex of emotions like this before, but in the end, he had been curious and needed to see how this would go. As if Nuka's thoughts were answered, Zira involved his pride in her mouth and gave it a light suckle tenderly. Nuka's cock twitched at this feeling, giving Nuka a jolt of pleasure that surprised him. Nuka closed her eyes and focused all of her attention on sucking her son off. Ah, holy termites, this feels so. Zira moved her tongue around in many directions to get the twitching sensation of Nuka's cock to a consistency. She felt Nuka slightly squirm a little at her actions, but no form of resistance. She made smacking noises with her mouth and even licked his sheath all the way up to the tip. Nuka couldn't take this feeling anymore and kept muffling moans and grunts every time his pride twitched. He felt something building up in his crotch that brimmed with a fiery passion for release. Holy crap, I don't know what's going on, but I feel like I need to pee. What is Mother doing to me? Nuka didn't have any time to collect his thoughts as his pride twitched uncontrollably. The pleasure then turned Nuka's pride into a cannon as he let out a groan of pleasure and released his precious seed into his mother's mouth. Zira kept his length in her mouth and gulped every single string of Nuka's cum, not letting a precious drop leave her mouth or touch the cold ground of the caverns. As Nuka's orgasm died down, he breathed hard through his nostrils. Zira released his length and licked her lips after her tantalizing performance on her son. Glad to know I still got it after all these years. And I must say, Nuka, you taste like Scar did, all sweet and salty. Oh, I do not need to know that, she said with a grin. Nuka felt slightly exhausted and wasn't paying too much attention to his mother, but his senses came back when he saw his mother's next action. Zira went up to Nuka with both their crotches touching, as Zira balanced herself by putting her front paws on Nuka's chest. Her hind legs pushed Nuka's hind legs up in the air more. Zira was then in a cowgirl position on her son. My dear Nuka, this isn't over yet. We still have the actual mating to do, she said with her seductive snarl. Nuka's face was red as an apple as he felt his mother's hot crotch over his pleasured-out member. Nuka looked in between her legs and saw a slit between Zira's crotch. It was wet and dripped a little bit on Nuka's shaft. Zira gave her son a lick on the cheek, I think you meant to say cheek, and pressed her lips against his. Nuka felt his mother's tongue invade what was left of his open muzzle and overpower him. His eyes slid back as he tasted his mother. This feels wonderful. I can't believe I'm now just experiencing this. I've never felt so alive before. And Mother taking control of all this. So amazing. Zira then released their kiss and smiled seductively at his son. Now, let us begin, my sweet Nuka. She lowered her crotch to Nuka's length and felt the tip of his member enter her flower. Nuka gasped at the sensation while Zira shuddered at the feeling of her son inside her. She then lowered herself more as she enveloped more of Nuka's length. Oh my God, this feels amazing. Nuka's eyes were half-lidded as he submitted to his mother. Zira began humping her son slightly, pushing his length further inside with each hump. Oh, Nuka, you're so good. Oh, I forgot to do it in her voice so well. Zira moaned as she continued to mate with Nuka. Both lions moaned in pleasure at the sound of the cavern filled with the sounds of their intimacy. Nuka felt like he was going to pass out from all the pleasure he and his cock felt. He already came earlier. Will he be able to do it again? As if the great king's had his thoughts, his pride began twitching at the sensation of Mother's wet folds massaging his length. Nuka squirmed and moaned as Zira began humping a bit faster. That's it. Ah, Nuka, you're making Mommy proud. You're such a good boy, Zira said lovingly as she moaned. Ah, yes, Mother. I'm a good boy. I'll do this as many times as you want. Please don't stop. I'm going to come. Zira moaned like her life depended on it, and suddenly her juices from her flower dripped all over Nuka's crotch as she felt the pleasure of her orgasm. Her cum then made it a little more easier for her to hump Nuka. As if one orgasm wasn't enough, Nuka's pride twitched wildly, and with a heavy moan he released his seed jet after jet, with each twitching of his pride into his mother's flower. Nuka felt exhausted and couldn't do anything else but lie on the ground. Zira collapsed on Nuka as she laid on top of him with his sheath still inside her. Warm white liquid of royal cum spilled out of her a little bit, but she didn't mind. Zira nuzzled Nuka's cheek and gave him a lick as Nuka drifted off into sleep from exhaustion. You did a great job, Nuka. You've made your pride so proud today. I love you so much, Zira said as she cuddled with her son. Eventually the two drifted off into slumber and for once held each other lovingly as mother and son. I need to point something out to you. Mothers and sons do not fuck each other! They do not fuck each other! You're not supposed to fuck your children! You are not supposed to mate with your children! You are not supposed to bloody mate with your children! It's a motherly embrace of... No! You're not supposed to bloody mate with your bloody children! What the bloody hell is wrong with you? What the bloody hell is wrong with you? Why do people keep writing stories about mothers and sons fucking each other? Why? Stop doing it. It's disgusting. It is bloody disgusting. Ah! I hope you're satisfied, creator. At least I get some pleasure knowing that you suffered too by reading this. Well, thank you all for watching today's episode. If you did like it, go to a psychiatrist. I'll see you all next time. Until then, cheerio!